for week 2, I chose to do the first prompt for this discussion, which was about slavery and its impact on the Americas. And the sources I'm going to use are all the lecture videos and also the reading from chapter 3 of the American Yelp. I think that's how you say it. I really thought overall what hit me was how fundamental slavery was in the founding of the United States. And I had kind of thought previously that, like, the colonists came and then, like, a couple hundred years later, or, like, farther along down the road, then slaves were kind of introduced, but the colonies were being founded and settled at the same time as slavery. And so we really see this country that was founded on the idea of the colonists being free from Great Britain, but also at the same time just bringing in all these enslaved people who had no rights and were treated worse and worse and worse and worse throughout the development of the United States, and how it started with other foreigners like the Irish and people who wanted land and would be indentured servants, and then pretty soon, through a lot of bad trial and error, people realized that these slaves from Africa were the most economically improving situation to bring to the United States or to the Americas, and how really the whole entirety of the Americas was founded on slavery, and just how it really impacted the economic situation. And so it was a lot of the money was all based on these cash crops that were grown by the slaves, like rice and tobacco and cotton later on, and how even things like how the travel and navigation worked with huge port cities being started, and how much networking there was because of the slave trade in America was really interesting to me. And I just think overall it was just really sad how we were started, our country was founded on this oxymoron and this contradiction between the people who founded it wanting to be free and at the same time enslaving all these other people. Thinking about the 5 C's that we learned, and last week, I chose to do context and change over time. And context reminds us that slavery has to be understood within the Atlantic trade framework, and that it was just happening all over the European and especially the English colonies, and how it all kind of ties together to then affect the Americas, and specifically what was going to be the United States. And how just learning about that whole network that intertwined can give us a good idea about how the different travel worked between the slaves and the conditions between different places. And then change over time helps us see how kind of like the fluctuation of slavery and how long its lasting impacts have on our country even today. And so we first see it, how we did this week, and then how it turned into segregation, racial violence, and then just kind of like this systemic inequality and oppression that we still see some places today. And I just think overall, studying the African slavery in in Americas is just really interesting, because it does still impact our country today. And we do still see a lot of our history involved in this, and a lot of our major conflicts and challenges we've had as a nation because of slavery. And so it's just really interesting to see how it kind of was introduced at the very beginning. Thank you.